Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Kane Audio VLOG. It is Friday, time for another Ask Me Anything. Before I start house admin, obviously I'm still in the temporary room, which is the back room of the house. I'll talk more about that in a bit. As usual, if you've got any questions, then comment below this video and I'll get back to you in the next one. House admin wise, I may or may not be able to do next week, but please don't let that stop you from dropping a comment, because I will get to it as soon as I can. I'm off on my first proper holiday for I don't know how long, but I might be able to do a video or two from there, so we'll see how it goes. Right, I think that is it. I'm literally off tomorrow, so everything's a bit chaotic at the moment. No change there. Yeah, I think that's it, so crack on. Right, first question, Zombo, what happened to the Midi keyboard? I'm guessing you're talking about the one I had here. The Keystation 88 is actually stacked up. I've got off camera here because I'm in the temporary room. I've still got loads of, my focal monitors. I've got my Moogs. I've got another rack. I've got a bunch of monitors along with the Keystation 88. It's all stacked up in boxes at the moment. I kind of don't want to be in this temporary room for too long, so I'm kind of punishing myself in a way, because the more painful I make it here, the more likely I am to hurry up and get the proper studio built. So yeah, so that's where the keyboard is. I still have it, and hopefully I'll have it back set up soon. Sunset 86, cheers Don for all the answers. Hopefully we'll get to see another Mixdown session soon. Yeah, I do keep saying this is in the plans. I need to just crack on and do it. Maybe I'll try and do that as soon as I'm back from holiday, actually. Yeah, I just need to confirm with the artist. I'm pretty sure I've got both artist and label on board for it, so I just need final confirmation, and I'll go through that. Also, on your website you offer a mixdown for track and separate mixing for vocals. If you have time, could you explain the process a bit more if vocals are included in the track? No. So what I mean is, if you have a track and it's a vocal track, or a track that has a vocal, then it depends on how the vocal has been mixed. So if, for example, some dance tracks just have one lead vocal, a bit of reverb, bit of delay, whatever, something like that is fine. I'll just include that as part of the track, that's not a problem. However, some people will, and maybe should, record multiple takes of vocals. There'll be harmonies layered in, there'll be different effects on different harmonies, all separate stems, and they might not be tuned. So the reason I separate those two jobs on my website is because if you haven't tuned the vocals, then as much as I always, we all think that vocals shouldn't be tuned, even the very best vocalists will still need a little tweak here and there. If those harmonies haven't been mixed properly, then I always view that as almost an entirely separate job. In fact, I think it's an entirely separate skill to be able to mix vocals. So I have a good friend of mine, Lee House, who, depending on the vocal and the complexity of it, if it's a huge, sometimes you can get vocal tracks and the vocal stems alone make up 30 or 40 stems, in which case if it's a really complex big vocal track, then I'll quite often get my mate Lee to help me out, because he's just incredible at mixing vocals, and I think that's not my strongest point, so I tend to work with him on that. while I do the rest of the track. So that's kind of why I separate those two jobs. So there's an additional charge if it's got loads of vocal tracks. However, you know, if somebody comes to me and says, I've got this vocal track, it's EDM, it's just one line of vocal, or you know, maybe you've mixed the vocals yourself and you've bounced them down into one stem and there's really no work needed other than a bit of fader riding or a bit of this, that and the other. You know, if that's the case, then I'll treat it as one job and that's just part of the mixdown. So yeah, so there's kind of two mixdowns when it comes to a big vocal track. You've got the mixdown of the track and then the mixdown of the vocal, and then you need to mix those down together separately. So it's almost 3 projects in one. So hopefully that makes more sense. Hope the studio planning is going well. I'll get to that. P.S. I did watch your last video till the end, but don't recall the keyword. Yeah, I didn't have one last week. I don't think I did, so that's fine. Casey Music, hey Dom, thanks a lot. Actually really was picking other sounds. I have to start to make my sound selection more seriously. My next question is about your live sets. So that was about getting the frequencies right, I think, or the stereo balance, wasn't it? Yeah, it was treating the stereo balance, and I was talking about using multiple oscillators and detuning or whatever. Do you prefer playing on players, Pioneer, Denon, whatever, or do you use a MIDI controller for Bitwig or even hardware synths on stage? Is there even a possibility for Bitwig to play live sets similar to Ableton? Okay, so right now when I'm DJing, I use Pioneer CDJs like most people. I also sometimes have my own effects units that I throw into that as well. However, to fill you in on my history, when I started DJing there was only vinyl, so I took vinyl everywhere and lugged it through airports and hated it. Then the CDJ 800s I think became sort of the norm, so I was sort of 50-50 vinyl and CD. And then it got to a point where Ableton was becoming more stable, so I got to a point where I thought, you know what, actually I'm liking Ableton, I'm liking the laptop thing, and I got a MIDI controller, and I thought I'll give this a go and see where it goes, because I found DJing with CDs, there was a little bit less skill required than vinyl, and I found myself kind of in between mixes, and once you sort of beat matched, I wanted more to do with my hands and I wanted to be more involved, so I ended up putting together a laptop set and trialled that in a few clubs, really enjoyed it, and then sort of built onto that, and then eventually I think the iPad came out and I added the iPad, and then I had a little MIDI keyboard, and then I had some faders, and then I ended up with like a suitcase full of equipment, and it just got bigger and bigger and bigger. And because I was constantly sort of trying new things and alpha testing and beta testing stuff, it got more and more confusing to the point where I didn't really know where I was anymore. And then I went to a gig somewhere, I think it was Pasha in London, and I was only playing in the room 2 there, so it wasn't a main set or anything, and I lugged in this suitcase full of equipment and spent, you know, ages setting it up, and I was always very aware that the DJ before me didn't want me interfering with the last part of his set, so I was sort of struggling to get myself set up all the time, lugging this suitcase through airports and whatever else, and I kind of looked at it and thought, do you know what, the people on the dance floor right now, as far as they're concerned, I could be checking Facebook for all they knew. So I then sort of saw a couple of other DJs come on stage, and by now the CDJ 2000s had come out, so everyone was using USBs, and I saw a couple of young lads come out on stage with a pair of headphones and a USB stick, and I sort of looked at that and then looked at my suitcase full of heavy equipment and thought, I'm doing this wrong. So as much as I enjoyed having, because I had like 4 channels of, if you imagine 4 decks, and then I had a couple of channels of VSTs for different bass lines and things. I had loads of channels of different effects. Everything was into everything. I had 2 iPads, one for triggering, one for effects, and then I had a mixer with 9 sliders and then effects on top of that. And then I had a keyboard for triggering additional stuff, and then percussion lines on top. So I had a whole world of stuff going on. But I kind of felt like it just wasn't working for me. So I ended up then thinking, you know what, no one else can tell the difference. No one knows what I'm doing here. So why am I lugging this heavy suitcase around? There's just no point to it. Whereas, so I, after that, I think this is going back probably 6 or 7 years, I suppose, was when I decided, screw this, I'll just go to CDJ 2000s and do what everyone else does. So I've kind of been doing that since. However, I'm now working on an idea of a live show, I think because my music is now starting to become a bit more uniform, I suppose. I think there's a sound that I have maybe in my tracks. So I have been working on a little side project at the moment, and I have set up a couple of Bitwig projects. So to answer the, is it even a possibility for Bitwig? Yes, absolutely. In fact, it's probably more possible with Bitwig than anything else. So yeah, so I have been working on like I'll call it a live show, but I think that's going to be another year at least in the making. And I'd like to get a custom controller, because I've been looking at all different MIDI controllers, and some of them do 80% of what I want, and some of them do maybe 60%, but the other bit's more vital, and nothing seems to quite fit. So I think I'm going to have to go down the route of a custom controller, and then from there you kind of have to warrant the amount of work involved in it. So I'll probably maybe trial it, because the way I've set it up is I'll have my Moog Sub 37 as well, and maybe the Slim Fatty as well, because I kind of need a couple of Moogs running in real time to get my sound working properly. So I think it's going to be one of those sort of heavy suitcase jobs again, and in which case I need to sort of distinguish between having a DJ set and a live set, and hopefully those will be 2 very different things. So yeah, another very long-winded answer. I seem to be rambling. So there we go, that answers that. Cav, hi Don. For some reason my comment on your previous AMA didn't seem to appear on the list you were reading from. Maybe because I'd added a couple of URLs to it. Yeah, I didn't see it. Anyway, it related to your plans for the garden studio. Nothing particularly pressing, I suspect. Cheers as always for another AMA. So yeah, so I replied to that saying, that's weird, can you repost? Hopefully be able to catch it on the next one. So here I am. I don't know what you ask, but as a few people have mentioned, as far as updates go on the garden studio, there really isn't an update at the moment. I have been in touch with a guy locally who does foundation building and things like that, and I was meant to try and get him to come over last week, which didn't happen just because I've been so busy. So when I get back from holiday, that's hopefully top of the list, and I'll have him over and we'll get a rough idea of how we're going to tackle it, because there's a couple of options. So I could buy a prefab ready-made off-the-shelf cabin. I have had a look at those, and some of them look great. You can get them, you know, fully insulated and whatever, so I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. I'll need to contact them and check if I can put in my own insulation so it's more acoustically treated than anything else. Failing that, I could always just get a cabin that's slightly bigger and then build essentially another cabin inside so it's double walled. So that's an option. However, the sizes aren't quite right because it's an odd sized garden. It's not a very big garden, and I'm going to be taking up a fair bit of space, and the off-the-shelf ones I've seen have sort of like a decking porch outside the front, which as far as I'm concerned is wasted space, because you're losing interior space to get that decking into the right size. So there's a lot to sort of think about. And then the other part of me goes, well, I could build it myself. I built my last studio myself. Admittedly, that was inside a unit, so it didn't need to be weatherproof or anything. So I'm sort of looking at ideas and sketching up a few plans, and then going, oh god, that's a lot of work. So yeah, so it's a case of, and I think this is the tricky bit of, you know, being self-employed as a musician. You know, you have to kind of juggle long-term work and short-term work. So, you know, it's all well and good saying, right, well, I can take a couple of weeks off, you know, much like the holiday I'm about to take. You know, that's been a long time coming, because not only do you have to take those couple of weeks off, you then have to plan for the couple of weeks after you're back. And, you know, you still, if you can afford the holiday, you still need to be able to afford to put food on a plate when you come back. The same goes with the cabin. If you can afford the time off to build the cabin yourself, you have to be able to then afford to eat afterwards, while you're getting back into work. So there's a lot to juggle with it. So I'm kind of toying with, do I just buy an off-the-shelf one, or do I build it from scratch, or do I get a cheaper off-the-shelf one and then modify it? There's a whole bunch of options. In fact, if you guys know of anyone who's done similar, I know there are a few on YouTube that I have looked at. There was that Christian Henson, and there was another one as well that I noticed recently. I think he was a drummer, and he'd built his own garden studio. I mean, that was ace. I wouldn't need it that soundproof because I don't work that loud. I'm not a drummer. But yeah, if you guys are aware of anyone who's done that sort of project, or if you've got any tips, by all means leave a comment on this video. And then the last question, Lumbeats, hey Dom, when is Voices in My Head coming out? Good question. How do you know about that? Oh, I put it in a mix, didn't I? So that was supposed to come out June or July this year. For one reason or another, it got delayed. I don't know is the honest answer. I need to get in touch with the label about that, but I think it's going to be in the fourth quarter of this year, so I'm going to guess November. Yeah, unfortunately that's a long time to wait, but that's the way the industry works. So yeah, there we go. I think that is everything. Yeah, so as usual, please do comment below. I'm loving this series. I love all the questions you guys have, and I love the fact that you know, some of you guys are proper regulars. It's great. So I like the fact that we're kind of forming a bit of a community these days. So yes, I have said several times now I'm going on holiday next week, but I'm hoping I might be able to do one of my vlog videos from there. If not, then I'll be back as soon as possible. So yeah, please do leave a comment underneath this video. Doesn't really matter how long I'm away, because I'll still get back to it and I will still answer all the questions. And if you have made it this far into the video, then congratulations to you. And to prove it, leave a comment saying the word Canon, because that's what I'm looking at. See you soon. Cheers.